Welcome back to Super Recaps. Today I will show you an erotic thriller film from 2009 called Chloe. The film starts with showing us the life of Catherine. She is a doctor and has just finished her shift. When she returns home, she has organized a surprise birthday party for her husband, David. He is a professor and is just about to finish his lecture and then plans to head home. Back at the house, Catherine, along with all the guests she has called over for the party, are eagerly waiting for David's arrival. Suddenly, Catherine gets a call from David, who informs her that he will be home really late today because he has missed his flight. Catherine is disappointed and unhappy when she hears this, but she politely tells all the guests to enjoy the party without David. Later, Catherine notices her son, Michael, with a girl, and when she begins to approach him to tell him to send his girlfriend back home, he angrily shuts his room's door. This disrespectful behavior really saddens Catherine. When Catherine wakes up the next morning, she sees that David is back home and is getting ready for work. David sees that she is up and apologizes for last night, but Catherine responds that it's all her fault and that she should have informed him about the party beforehand. David then states that he will come back late today due to some work and will be leaving the house in a while. Then a few moments later, Catherine finds out that Michael's girlfriend is still at their house, and so she warns Michael to never repeat this same mistake again. Later, when Catherine is about to leave for work, she notices a message on David's phone from a girl who is thanking David for last night. This makes Catherine realize that David had lied to her about missing his flight. Instead, he had spent the night with a girl. Later that night, David and Catherine go out for dinner with some colleague. During dinner, David strikes up a casual conversation with a waitress. This makes Catherine irritated, so she makes an excuse and goes to the restroom, where she hears a crying voice of a girl from one of the stalls. The girl asks Catherine for a tissue, and then she comes out of the stall and thanks Catherine. After they leave the restroom, Catherine notices that girl with a guy, and they both stare at each other for a bit. On the drive home after dinner, Catherine questions David about the previous night, about how he missed his flight, and if he celebrated his birthday there. But David makes up some lie about how he missed his flight and says that he did not celebrate his birthday. The following morning, Catherine is working in her clinic when she notices the girl from the previous night entering a hotel. After work, Catherine goes to that hotel to meet the girl. When they meet, the girl introduces herself as Chloe, and they make some small talk. After chatting for a bit, Catherine requests Chloe to meet with David and explains how she thinks that he might be cheating on her. So Catherine wants to test David and check if he will flirt with Chloe. Chloe agrees to her request, and she meets David in a restaurant the next day. She attempts to seduce him, and he smiles at her. Chloe then meets Catherine later to report on her encounter with David. She tells her that David was merely pretending to read a newspaper and was flirting with her. After hearing this, Catherine becomes really upset and gives Chloe some cash and requests her to meet David again. Later that night, Catherine sees David talking to someone on the phone, but before she can approach him, she hears Michael crying in his room. When she goes to his room, she discovers that Michael is crying because his girlfriend broke up with him. Catherine rushes to tell David about this, but he just dismisses it and insists that Michael will be fine. A while later, they share a few drinks and get drunk, and just as Catherine is about to kiss David, he stops her and says that he has work. The next morning, Catherine sees Michael confiding in David about his breakup, and this makes her really happy. But soon, she receives a text from Chloe, who wants to meet her. So Catherine meets her later that day and asks her to not meet David anymore. But Chloe responds that she has already met David recently, and he wanted to take her somewhere private to sleep with her. She also claims that David brought her to a private spot and kissed her. And when she is about to go into more details, Catherine interrupts her and says she can't hear anymore. Catherine is clearly upset and walks out of the restaurant. When Catherine gets to her car, she notices Chloe falling off her bike, so she goes to help Chloe and bandages her injury. During this time, Chloe tells her the entire story of how she became intimate with David. Hearing all that makes Catherine really hurt, and she tears up, and after talking for a bit longer, she leaves. Within a few days, Chloe visits Catherine at her workplace. This is where she encounters Michael, and they both converse about music for a bit before she sees Catherine and informs her that she is going to see David today and leave. A few hours later, while Catherine is eating lunch with her friends, she receives an address from Chloe. So, Catherine goes to the location and meets Chloe in the hotel room. There, Chloe tells her in detail about how she became sexually intimate with David in this room. This causes Catherine to become a little aroused, and when Chloe questions her about it, Catherine ignores her. After a while, They'll leave the hotel room, but Catherine feels very sad, so she sits down for a moment. Chloe takes this opportunity to kiss Catherine, but after the kiss, Catherine leaves without uttering a word. Later in the evening, Catherine goes to see Michael's music performance, and David is already there. During the performance, Catherine starts recalling all the things Chloe told her about David. So, after the show, she decides to meet Chloe, and they sleep together. After they are done, Catherine returns home and says goodbye to Chloe in the taxi. When Catherine enters the house, David is there waiting for her and demands to know if she's having an affair. Catherine, on the other hand, responds coldly by saying why is he even asking since he doesn't care and probably sleeps with all his students. David reacts angrily and says that he is only close to his students to understand and help them, and that he has never had a sexual relationship with any of them. Michael comes downstairs and begins yelling at them. The next day, Catherine goes to work and sees that Chloe is already there, waiting for her. Chloe starts talking about their previous night's activities, but Catherine interrupts her and tells her that they have gone too far and they need to stop. She then hands Chloe a check and instructs her to not meet David again. But Chloe becomes enraged and tells Catherine that whatever happened between them was not business, and then she storms out of the clinic in anger. Then, Chloe visits Michael and hands him a music CD and flirts with him before leaving. In the next scene, when Catherine arrives home late at night, she hears Chloe's music and begins checking the house as she thinks Chloe is inside. Soon, she gets a call from Chloe, who informs her that David has told her that he feels wrong whenever he touches Catherine because he feels like he's cheating on Chloe. Catherine then requests Chloe to meet her at their usual spot in an hour. After that, Catherine calls David to the same restaurant to clarify all confusion. They start talking, and David informs Catherine that he didn't celebrate his birthday because he was worried about his retirement. As they are talking, Chloe arrives at the restaurant, and as soon as she sees David, she runs away. David doesn't recognize her and questions Catherine about her. At first, Catherine makes up some lie, but David doesn't buy it and asks her for the truth. Catherine does not respond, so David becomes enraged and leaves the restaurant. Catherine chases him and stops him. She then finally tells him the truth about how she suspected he was cheating on her, and so she urged Chloe to get close to him to check if he would cheat or not. Then she tells him about how Chloe made up lies about him, and eventually, Catherine started to feel an attraction to Chloe and slept with her. Despite this, David assures her that he loves her and kisses her, and then leaves for work. In the meantime, Chloe visits Michael, who is all alone at Catherine's house. They go to Catherine's room and get sexually intimate. When Catherine returns home, she walks to her room and sees Chloe and Michael together. Catherine then tells Michael to get out and begins to question Chloe about her intentions and why she did all of this. Chloe then confesses her love for Catherine and says that she lied about David just so she could meet Catherine. Just then, Chloe takes her hairpin and threatens Catherine with it, asking for a kiss. She kisses Catherine forcefully, and Michael somehow manages to enter the room. Catherine looks at him and pushes Chloe to the window. The window breaks, but Chloe doesn't fall off as she's holding the edges. But after a second, Chloe lets go and falls out of the window and dies. Soon after, David returns home, and the cops take Chloe's body away. A few months later, Catherine and David are happily celebrating Michael's graduation party. And in the end scene, we see Catherine wearing Chloe's hairpin. Thanks for watching. To support the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button and press the bell icon to get new video updates.